that brought me back alive because I was prepared. I had everything prepped for any situation that could have happened. I had ammo, I had water, I had medical supplies, all because Gunny taught us you need to have that because you never know when you're going to get stuck somewhere in a fight.
You know, since his passing, I think most of us have gotten very, very close with his family. You know, his brother Jerry specifically, and you know, understanding Gunny. You know, at the time, like that was my first unit. You know, and you don't know what you don't know, and I had no shit, you know. I knew the company was hard. I knew we trained as Sergeant Major said, right? Monday we left, Friday we came back. You know, don't get in trouble on the weekend, and then Monday we left again. And Gunny was the nucleus of the company. You know, he was legitimately 10 foot tall and bulletproof. And he was even keel, you know. And for me personally, like I said, was, you know, he was a father figure to me, you know. No disrespect, you know, my parents have passed. But, you know, now that I'm a father, many people at times, you know, credit me like, you know, my kids are older. I have a son that's Marine, a daughter that's married to Marine. And then my youngest is still in the house. He's in high school. And I do a lot of things wrong, but, you know, one of the things is like I learned from Gunny was like, you know, just be compassionate and be even, you know, firm and fair. I know we use those words a lot, but he really was, you know. And I say this was like there was nothing that he expected of us that he wasn't doing himself.
Oh yeah,
You know,
that's
I honestly, you know, one of my first hikes, you know, I'm an East Coast Marine. I'm from Ohio. I went to Camp Geiger, you know, it's as flat as this table.
Yeah.
You know, let's be real, you know.
Yeah.
And then it's like, welcome to this crater that is 5th Marines, you know. And I remember calling my mom on the landline. You know, that's how long ago this was. There wasn't cell phones. And I was like, I don't know if this is where I'm supposed to be, you know? And, you know, just look around, there's mountains. And you got very familiar with those mountains. And every hike, every remedial, which I did once, Gunny was with us, you know? Bright and early, he was there. I mean, he did everything. He was the first one in, the last one out. Even as a junior Marine, I knew that. You know, when I had to go to the CP, Gunny was always in his office. He was always available. And he was always present, you know? Which to me showed that he really he cared, like deeply cared for the Marines and the unit. And, you know, so, you know, from his past, you know, now talking to his family was, you know, Gunny was, you know, he was a staff sergeant, Army Ranger. He wasn't like I went through Ranger school, I got the tab, card carrying guy. He was the man. He was in 82nd for a while, I know that. And then, you know, speaking to his brother was, I think he was wanting, or he did submit for warrant officer in the Army, I think for the pilot program, and he was denied. And that's when I believe he was, you know, also selected for E7, Sergeant First Class. And so he was also hitting service limitations, and he had a decision to make. From my understanding, talking to his brother, was they joined on the buddy program. They served however long he served in the Army.
His brother was in the Army too?
Yeah, he has 2 brothers that were in the Army.
Okay.
But he served with one of them in the 82nd, and he basically, you know, hit a timeline where it was like, I need to, you know, crap or get off the pot. And he always wanted to be a Marine. And when he was denied for warrant officer, that was kind of like the catalyst. It was like, okay, like I'm going to be a Marine. So he went from a selected E7 in the Army Ranger,
Like in a Ranger battalion.
in a Ranger battalion, you know, and Sergeant Major can talk more about it, but like in his bio, you know, I mean, he dropped in Grenada. This is not a guy that like, you know, just kind of like slid through the cracks. I mean, he was like the main effort of everything that you could do. And he wanted more. And so, you know, he wanted to fight. He was a fighter, right? And that's one thing I've learned about from his family was like, you know, they always say, all of them, they're like, Jeff was the older cousin. You know, they grew up in Iowa. They're you know, grew up on a farm. If you understand anything about farm, was like, you know, the kids are close because like that's your workers, you know, and they all relying on each other. And he was like the father figure, you know, of everyone. You know, they say you know, Jerry was telling me, he's like, you know, we'd be into trouble doing we weren't supposed to be doing, and all of a sudden, you know, Jeff would show up, and it was like you just knew. everybody got straight real quick, right? It was like dad was there, you know?
Yep.
Dad was there, yeah.
And it was like, he's speaking of his brother as like a young man, you know? And it's like, okay, this is just who he's always been, you know? But when he cross-decked, you know, he became a PFC in the Marine Corps and made it all the way to gunny. And, you know, Liam can talk about it, but, you know, he was going to submit his gunner package after he, you know, unfortunately passed away, but after we got back from OIF-1. And he was the first person that I remember ever talking to me and taking the time to explain to me what the gunner was and what he wanted to do. And, you know, he kind of planted, for me personally, planted the seed in my head. But yeah, he's a lot of things. He still is a lot of things to me. I carry him with him every day. And, you know, personally as a gunner was like, I just try to uphold the reputation that I know that he would have wanted and he would have done himself. You know, and as General Padilla said, was like, he would have been not just a hell of a gunner, he would have been the best damn gunners we ever had, ever. And that's awesome. A fact. That's a fact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that father figure thing. You know, there's I've read, I'm sure all of you have read a million books about all this stuff as well, but like when I think about, like, it's almost like a lot of warrior culture. You look at like past units and, you know, foreign militaries or previous wars and things like that. You've got some folks here and there that were peppered in that were similar to Gunny Bohr, like almost like a father figure, and had like compassionate leadership, like what you're describing, because it's like the firm but fair thing. Like, your father is going to be firm with you because he wants you to be successful. He wants you to achieve greatness. He wants the best for you, but he's also going to be fair and compassionate with you when he's able to, because he wants to take care of you as well. And like oftentimes, like when you're a junior Marine, like for most young 18, 19, 20-year-old Marines that are practically kids, old enough to vote and sometimes old enough to drink, but some of these kids might not come from a home that has parents in it, you know what I mean? Like, and so maybe you don't have an example of like what a good man is or a good father figure is. And what if that's your first example, you know? Like, how fortunate would you be to have that kind of a leader in your life to be a mentor of yours? So that's a huge deal, because like a lot of these guys, maybe they only do 4 years, you know, but that leaves a lasting impact on them. And then those people then go out into society, into American society, and, you know, they take those character traits that they gained and those lessons in leadership that they gained from these individuals they served with, you know. And so like this one person likely had an impact on a lot more people than we probably even know, because all of the people that was within his sphere of influence have then gone forth out into the world to do other stuff and influence other people in a positive way. And like, I mean, that, like, there's second, third order effects that are positive in nature that happen as a result of good leadership like that, which
that's clearly the case here.
Yeah.
Clearly the case. He impacted so many people, and it wasn't just those Marines that were serving under him. It was any Marine that witnessed him.
Yeah.
You know, whether, no matter their rank, no matter what unit they were in, he was the personification of a servant leader with passion. He had a true passion for what he did, and he loved the Marines with whom he served, and he loved the Marines in particular for whom he was responsible. Nothing bore that out better than the day that unfortunately he was killed. You know, he was committed to being there for his company, even when he didn't have to be.
That's another thing I want to lead up to, is we'll get into that point as well, because I want to kind of talk through like the timeline sequence of events that happened that day and leading up to it. But you all had met him. He finally got to the company. When did you start working as the police sergeant with him?
I actually was in company headquarters before he came over.
Okay.
I was there with First Sergeant Green. As soon as First Sergeant Green came over, I had come over as a Humvee driver and the police sergeant. Our company went from being, you know, an okay company, and then I could watch as all of the different implementations were coming along. As Gunny started having us doing different things differently, or First Sergeant had us doing things differently, the PT picked up, the training picked up, everything picked up, and I could see the change. Lance Corporal Schmuckatelli over here.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what awesomeness I was seeing as this change came about with Alpha Company. And you can see it in my cadre of Marines, the guys that were just ahead of Aaron's cadre. We have a swagger to us as Alpha Company Marines. We're different than anybody else in our battalion, different than anybody else in our regiment, And even today, we are a super tight group of veterans. And it's all because Gunny made us a family. We watch over each other. We even today, and I took those same lessons, like you were saying. I went into the National Guard because I didn't want to go back to Iraq again. So I joined the Army National Guard, and I was back in Iraq 6 months later.
Funny enough.
Yeah. So they label us as Marines in the National Guard. We're still Marines.
Yep.
And so here I am, fire team leader with a mortar section, and I'm still using the same things that Gunny taught me to treat the soldiers I'm with. And yeah, I'd see Marpat camouflage across the background, and I'd be like, oh, it's home. But no, but Gunny helped us. He helped bring me back alive. Because my second deployment, I got blown up 52 times.
52 times?
Yeah, in different IED explosions. Somewhere in my patrol of 4 Humvees, one of us got hit by an IED. And that was the same time. It was 2004, 2005, 2006. And I was up in Kirkuk. So it's the same time that 1-5 was fighting in Fallujah. Like, I actually got attached to 2-2, who was there in Fallujah with you guys at the same time. And so that brought me back alive because I was prepared. I had everything prepped for any situation that could have happened. I had ammo, I had water, I had medical supplies, all because Gunny taught us you need to have that because you never know when you're going to get stuck somewhere in a fight. And you have to be ready for a fight at any time. And because Gunny taught us as junior Marines those things, it's gone on to be spread throughout the rest of the Marine Corps, the military, and now in civilian life, I work for the VA. And now that's what I'm doing now is I care for my fellow Marines, the sailors. I love to find corpsmen because Doc always can hook you up.
Yeah.
And so it's now I have the opportunity to help others.
You know what I really liked? One of the things I really liked specifically latched onto mentally when you were talking was the family aspect. If you are with people that you consider to be your family members, you're probably going to be willing to fight even more fiercely to protect them because that's your brothers and your sisters, right? You know, which that's like going back to the father figure thing. It's like, hey, these are my brothers. You know, these are my brothers and sisters. And I'm going to fight much more fiercely for people that I consider family, like blood, same blood, than somebody I don't know or somebody that I just look at as like, this is just my coworker, you know? And that's building a culture. Building a command culture like that is not something that just like naturally happens. You got to have the right concoctions, the right people, the right influences in there, you know what I mean? And obviously, like, as you guys have explained, like, Gunny Bohr brought a specific flavor to the unit that changed the culture of the company and ultimately the battalion, because changing an entire company, that's 1/4, that's a quarter of your whole battalion. So it's going to have
not only that, but they became like the pace setter.
You got to keep
Alpha
up
Company
with those.
became the pace setter for the rest of the battalion. And when they're maintaining that pretty darn good pace, everybody else had to up their game.
Everybody come up.
And something that I think the Gunner and Liam both mentioned was that I think is very true. And you talk about the culture. That's what the Marine Corps is all about.
Yeah.
It's our culture. It's not about weapons. It's not about technology. It's about the culture that we have. This battalion had a really, really very good culture that is something that makes the Marine Corps unique. And the large part of that was the pace that was set by Alpha Company, and that was established by Gunny Bohr. Some of the things that they mentioned also, Liam and Gunner, is about the worst thing that you could possibly do to let somebody down, to let the gunny down. Even he didn't yell, but if you in some way knew that you disappointed him, that was worse than being. I would rather be yelled at, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that was pervasive throughout the battalion. That also came from the Regimental Combat Team with General Dunford as the commanding general, or as the commander of RCT 5 at the time. The worst thing, I'd served with him since I was a second lieutenant, and the worst thing I could ever imagine doing would be to let him down in some way. And I remember doing it once as a battalion commander, and it was something like, it was something in the rear, it wasn't in combat or anything like that. He just said to me in a very calm voice, that's not how I would like for that to have been handled. I was ready to just,
Devastated.
I was ready to go and slice my stomach open right there.
I was ready to commit seppuku.
Yeah, it was the worst thing I could possibly. I'll never let that happen again.
Yeah.
And that's the attitude that
That's
I think
the
a
attitude
lot of
the
the
Marines had
Yeah.
for the
The
gun.
whole company,
Yeah.
officer enlisted, didn't matter.
Yep.
The entire company had that attitude.